So I opened my phone and I opened the Uber app to check the progress of what turned out to be one of the most interesting Uber rides I've ever taken. And I watched the dot slowly, and it was slow because when you're staring at that dot like a kettle waiting to boil, that dot moves slowly. And I watched the progress of the driver, whose name I don't remember, but I watched that dot move towards our house inch by inch as my wife, Cathy, who's probably a good time for you to
Hi,
say
I'm here
hello.
too.
You're here too.
Hello.
Paced around me, not doing the thing that you kind of expect women in labour to do from TV and that, where it's kind of a lot of but you were pacing a lot, I seem to recall.
I paced for the entire last trimester of my pregnancy. I couldn't sit down. I just had to stand and walk at all times. It was a strange affliction, one that made me incredibly fit.
Yeah, you were the fittest pregnant woman on that.
I was walking
in that
like
hospital
5-6 miles a day by the end of my pregnancy, and at this point I was 2 weeks overdue as well, so I was 42 weeks pregnant, and we were about to get in an Uber because
you were big.
Didn't have a car.
It's our first child, so we don't know what to expect beyond, you know, what they tell you in the classes and what you know from TV. But one thing you don't usually see in labour situations is the couple getting in an Uber. Or at least I'd never seen that before. But
I've seen it because I've seen Look Who's Talking.
Look who's talking. What, Kirstie
John
Alley?
Travolta's the taxi driver, and Kirstie Alley gets in when she's pregnant. It's more something you see in American movies, I think, because like people in New York don't have cars. But yeah, we were living in Surrey and didn't have a car, and the hospital luckily was only like 2 miles away.
So we thought, no problem, we'll get an Uber.
No problem.
Now this guy, let's call him Tony.
That wasn't his name.
Tony, not his name. Sorry, Tony. Tony was not expecting because I didn't add it into the notes when I booked the Uber. Like, wife pregnant.
Yeah, but it was like 5 a.m.
Prepare yourself.
5 a.m. and it was booked to go to the local hospital, so like something was up.
Well, that could be anything. I slipped and banged my head, but I don't want to get the free NHS ambulance. So anyway, yeah, we get in the car. I mean, Tony figures out what's happening pretty quickly, as you would.
So nice, because I had heard that when you're in labour and then when you get in a car, that can accelerate labour, and yeah, that's actually 100% true. So I've never been in more pain than I probably was in that 5-minute car journey, and he was so nice. Not once did he make any noises about potential water breaking. He brought us straight to the door, and then do you remember what he said?
I'd have put a sheet down if I were him.
And do you remember what he said at the door then?
He said, good luck or something. He said something really nice.
He said something like, good luck. I wish you and your family the best of health.
Yeah.
And
Tony was a nice guy.
He was so nice.
He was a man of few words because he did not speak that whole time.
And I said to
which
you,
was wise.
After he said that, I turned to Dave and said, do you think he knew I was in labour? And you were like, yeah, I think so.
and I just could not believe that Cathy thought she was being discreet. That she thought she had the capacity to be discreet during labour.
And then we got to this lovely birth centre.
It's a testament to your want for privacy.
We get to the lovely birth centre, which we're really fortunate to live so close to. And we went inside, obviously, and I was waiting at reception in like extreme pain at this point and having like contractions quite close together. And I had this bizarre moment where I'm like reading the plaque in the birth centre, and it's called the Abbey Birth Centre. And it's like, this birth centre was opened by Abby Crouch, like Peter Crouch's wife. And turned out she had some whole thing to do with this birth centre, and that's why it was the Abbey Birth Centre. And I was like, this is not what I fucking need right now to be reading about this. And I was very distressed. And then we finally got to go in to this wonderful room where there's like a huge birthing pool and like this crazy thing you get in the NHS over here, I can't tell you, where like we got a private room that had a double bed.
Yeah, in this brand new like birthing suite, it's only a few years old. It was like a hotel,
Yeah.
all thanks to Peter Crouch's wife.
we had like our own bathroom, like an ensuite. We had a little garden. We had the birthing pool, the double bed, as I said.
It's
Now,
as good as it sounds, guys.
but anyway, all that aside, I didn't care. I was like, get me in the pool, because I was in so much pain, and I knew that if you got in the water, that would like help with the pain. And yeah, that kind of was the beginning of like the labor, right?
Yeah, and so look, I think it's interesting because everyone's got a different labor story, right? You know, and everyone has a different experience, and I mean that from both the woman's point of view, but also the birthing partner. Let's describe it. So I was the birthing partner, or the husband / birthing partner in this situation. And I think I have clearly the less important job to do here, but
slightly.
But nonetheless, I took my job very seriously, right?
Of course.
Because I was there to to support you, to provide you with whatever you needed, and we were prepared for that. You prepare for that as a couple. You talk about. You read the whole, remember you memorized basically like the whole birthing chapter in What to Expect When You're Expecting. Yeah, and I learned how to potentially deliver the baby if I had to. That's in that book, which thankfully never came to pass.
I never read that chapter because I was like, do you know what? I kind of don't want to know.
You know what? I trust my husband implicitly. He's read the chapter.
But I had spoken to my midwife about, what should I bring? Like, what do you bring when you're going into labor aside from like clothes and like clothes for the baby? And she had given me 2 hot tips, one of which was Lucozade, because if you're in a long labor, like you'll need glucose. Like if you imagine you're running a marathon, you need like glucose in your body. You also need hydration. And she also said like loads of my patients like get hungry, and I found that like Hobnobs is like the best thing because you get like all that dense sugar and like carb at the same time. So naturally, of course, we packed a 6-pack of Lucozade and a whole packet of Hobnobs.
Yeah, so 2 very important items. And I never once questioned the brand choice of biscuit here.
This is like the midwife said Hobnobs.
She said it with such authority. And with such sort of the science all seemed to add up to me that I was like, so when I went shopping for the essentials, which this is part of my important job, I went to the biscuit aisle and I went straight to those Hobnobs.
And I don't think we've ever bought a packet of Hobnobs before.
No, I'm not a Hobnobs guy. I'm not really a biscuit guy. And
I'm
neither are you.
Not a Lucozade gal.
No, but so it wasn't about finding the things that you would have had as a preference. It was the NHS has recommended Lucozade and Hobnobs officially, so that's what we're going with. So that was kind of 2 important parts of my job. The other parts of my job I saw as being, the supportive, loving partner, and that's something that came naturally. Watching you in the worst pain I've ever seen you in distress and discomfort. So
Discomfort's a really nice word for it.
I know I should have minimized your experience, but that's what I look like. Is underestimating it. But I did what any spouse would do, and what most spouses would do in that situation or any other. I went to try and comfort you as best as I could. So that for me, that meant, rubbing your shoulder, holding your hand, whispering sweet words into your ear. It's all going to be okay. But turns out Cathy didn't want any of that.
Like maybe in my head I thought that's what I would want, but in reality, like I was in this lovely birthing pool and I wanted Dave as far away from the pool. And like we mentioned, we have this lovely big room which we still can't believe we got, and like Dave was fully at the other end of the room. Yeah. And he kept being like, are you okay? I was like, I'm fine. No, I wasn't saying I'm fine. I was like, yeah, like just stay away from me. And I was like 15 feet away, and eventually I did say, in a corner on a chair holding a packet of Hobnobs. But then I did say, Dave, I'm actually really thirsty, like because I had quite a quick labour. It was like done in about 3 hours, but like I was naturally really thirsty, so you did bring me a bottle of Lucozade, which I was very grateful for.
I did. That was one. That was and for me, honestly, that was one of the most significant moments of the whole experience, because I felt like I was useful and I was contributing, because for those 3 hours, and I'm not at all saying that my experience compares to yours, because you definitely had the harder job, but I sat for the majority of 3 hours silently watching you from 15 feet away in the worst pain, and I could do nothing about it except come to you periodically with hobnobs to offer you hobnobs, which you did not want.
And you kept coming over and saying like, do you want hobnob? And at this point, as I mentioned, it's a really quick labour. It was like first thing in the morning. I actually wasn't even hungry, but eventually I like took pity, and I was in the birthing pool.
You took pity on me in this situation.
And I said, yeah, Dave, fine, I'll take a hobnob. Thank you. And you were so happy. And then like I went to take one tiny nibble out of the hobnob, and then I just left it on the corner of like the birthing pool, like kind of on the edge of a bath, if you can imagine. And I just left the hobnob there and kind of went about the process of birth at that point, and it all kicked off, and I had to get out of the pool because that wasn't working, and then had like a load of gas and air, and then eventually had our son Oscar, our firstborn, on a beanbag that they had in the birth centre, which was just amazing as well. The whole thing was awesome. And then Oscar was born, and then we kind of, you know, the way they like clean the baby and you cuddle the baby and you like...
And not to undersell this moment, because it's been said 1,000 times before, but it is transcendental, like that.
It's amazing,
that moment.
And then Oscar shat all over me. He shat everywhere, but that was amazing. And then we kind of got into the double bed that I mentioned was there, and we were like having this like amazing family moment, you know. And like there's this kind of famous thing that like everyone says after you have a baby, but it's true. Like the nurse or the midwife said, do you want some tea and toast? And everyone always says it's like the best tea and toast you'll have in your life. And I was like, yeah, I'd love some tea and toast. Like, I'm really hungry now. And then she walked over to the birthing pool and she came back and said, no, she's holding a soggy, wet hobnob that's been at the corner of the birthing pool for at least an hour and a half with one nibble taken out of it, but has been like completely splashed in water and God knows what else. And she says, do you want this hobnob? And I was like, do you know what? I'm grand for the hobnob. Thanks very much.
And in that moment, I was watching her and just thinking, that's my job. How dare you offer my wife a hobnob?
So anyway...
to this day, we go shopping, and if we're walking down the biscuit aisle and I see hobnobs, I don't know how you feel, you probably get PTSD or trauma, but for me, I just get this overwhelming sense of inadequacy.
I get like, you know the way like the human body's programmed to forget pain, and like women are programmed to like forget labour and forget the pain of it, because if you dwelled on it too much you could never have another child. And we've had another baby since, Elliot, in the same birthing centre, and like the same experience, other than this time we didn't bring no hobnobs, we just brought the Lucozade, which, top tip, really works. And when I see hobnobs, which is actually relatively frequently because we live in England, and like people now, not that we've been in people's houses much in the last year, but people very often in England will have a packet of hobnobs in the house, and I see the hobnobs and it's like this just fucking takes me back to 4 years ago now, and Dave like is standing there with like a puppy dog with his biscuit in his hand, and then the nurse, I'm having this like overwhelming experience of like endorphins and bonding with my child and being shat on and cuddling him all at the same time and like trying to feed him, and the nurse just like coming over and offering me this wet, soggy, disgusting hobnob. So yeah, it's a big trigger for me, and it's like this kind of warm, lovely memory of you trying to be supportive when in fact the last thing I needed was you. I wanted your presence but not your assistance, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And I know
I was present.
I was really lucky to have you there because you were an emotional support but not a physical support, I would say.
Thank you. Would you like a hobnob?